Hi guys, it's Chris with City Girl Homestead. So I am going to do my video that I talked about yesterday today. I'm going to call it Fear Sells, Are You Gonna Buy? Now I watched Lisa over at Sutton's Days, and she did bring up some really good points about some shortages that we might be experiencing because of the oil crisis and the war and all that good stuff. And I do agree that it takes a few months for that stuff to kick in. And so, do we need to be fearful? No. I'm a true believer in, do I live life in fear? No. But do I have fears? Yes. And do we all? Yes. Well, I've been watching some programs, and their video titles are like clickbait. It's, you're gonna die if you don't do this, or you're gonna do that, and we're gonna be at the end of the world, we're doing this, we're doing that. And people click on that. They click on it and over again, and I'm guilty of that too. And they're making tons of money off of you being scared. I also watched a couple of videos from the Needy Homesteader, Heather. She's here in Michigan as well. Both these girls are from Michigan. And so I want to give you some takes on what they said, and then takes on what I think. And then I'm going to show you a few things that I bought. So right now, our biggest concern, other than gas prices and all that good stuff, is a lot of our fertilizer comes from other countries. Why we don't make it here? No idea. But other countries depend on it too. And if we don't have that fertilizer, there may be delayed planting, but honestly, we may have delayed planting because I don't know about how everybody else in Michigan's doing, but at 12:15 this morning, I got woke up to, we had one heck of a storm. It was thunder and lightning, and I actually sat up in bed. Usually I sleep really great during storms, but the noise that I was hearing, I wanted to make sure there wasn't water rushing down the road, because that's what it sounded like. But it was actually, the wind was so strong. Tom said that one of the roads is flooded, and that, you can't see the dam. I seen on Facebook that Calava, where Renee lives, I did text her to see if they're doing okay, and she said, yeah, but it's really bad all around there. Nene, she had to leave her house because the dam broke. So our planting probably will be delayed by that, because obviously you can't get into a field full of mud. Reduce crop yields if you don't have the fertilizer. So it's funny but not funny. We complain that we have all this junk in our food, but we have to do that with fertilizer. Okay, so that we can plant enough for everybody. So you're like on a, because the fertilizer, yes, it produces a lot more food, but the fertilizer also makes our food not as good. So if we don't get the fertilizer that we need, and that it's affordable for the farmers, they may not plant as much, which isn't good. So it could actually make higher food costs, or not be able to get as many things that you want to get. I'm reading off my computer, sorry. But lack of adequate fertilizer could strain serious disruptions in the agricultural productivity, higher food prices, and economic strain on the farmers as well. The things that they say that will be affected is cereals, vegetables, fruits, livestock feed, product or dairy products. Now, Lisa did make a very valid point. If we don't have the corn, grain, all those good things, people are like, well, I eat, keto or whatever. it will affect you, because a lot of your animals are, including chickens and, you know, your beef, pork, all that, are fed corn and other different kinds of, you know, I'm not sure all what they do. So, on that list should have been meat and not just dairy. So those are some things that, you know, you could be short on, and it could affect our animals. And like she said, you know, people say something about grass-fed. Yes, people do buy it, but I have to agree with her that, well, a lot of people can't afford grass-fed, and so they're buying from, you know, farmers, but feedlots and all those good things too as well. So if we can't fill the feedlots, then you're not, you know, unless you've got a great rapport with a farmer, which is a good idea, really good idea. So the other thing I agreed with her on is that people are so freaked out about building this huge pantry. And, you know, back in 2020, excuse me, this rain is messing me up a little bit. But back in 2020 when COVID happened, I had just learned how to can, and, you know, there was so much fear out there, and I literally fell for all of it. It started out with not having toilet paper. Tom didn't want me to keep stocking up things, you know, and he's like, what do we need all that for anyway, and blah, blah, blah. I didn't have a big stockpile of anything. Well, when we couldn't get toilet paper and we were down to our last roll, I had to drive all the way to Charlotte, which is 25 minutes away, to go buy toilet paper from Walmart. Well, then he changed his mind. Then I learned how to can water bathing, and then I learned how to pressure can. Then I learned how to dehydrate. I would love to, you know, be able to get the big, it's not the dehydrator, but whatever it's called. I would love to get that. Maybe I should do it. Everybody does those, you know, GoFundMe or whatever. I'm kidding. But anyway, I was learning skills that I had never learned before. Now, I'm not going to lie. I went overboard. That's why when you see me using up canned goods, some of them are from 21, 22, 23, 24, whatever. I went overboard. I bought into the fear. I bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. And, you know, I kept thinking, oh, what if the world's going to end tomorrow? I need to have enough food to feed my entire family that doesn't even live in my house for a year. I need to make sure I do that. So I had hundreds and hundreds of jars of canned food downstairs. I still do. But, you know, I wanted to make sure that my family was provided for too, in case something bad happened. And I think a lot of us parents and grandparents, we want the same thing. We don't want to see our kids go without. But the problem was, I stocked up due to fear. Not trusting in my Lord and Savior that He would get us through it. Because people are freaking out about the war. And, you know, we've made it through so many wars. We've made it through, you know, really rough times where, you know, the government issued food and, you know, whatever. We've gone through it and we've made it through. Not just in this country, but in countries all over the world. There's been really bad times, and then there's been really good times. So, with what I watched on hers, I agree with this. She said things that you should do for your working pantry, and I'm going to explain the difference. Grains, beans, shelf-stable milk, fruits and veggies, pasta, and she said, write down exactly what you eat. Now, there is a difference between a full-blown big old pantry and a working pantry. And what I think is so important, people that have never done any kind of stocking up, that is important just to get a working pantry going. You know, write down the foods that you eat. You know, like I went out and got not hundreds, but tons and tons of rice, and I put them in 2-cup packages so I could barter. And I mean, I really, really went to the, and you know, it's like, I think back now, I'm like, why did you do that? Well, out of fear. They had us so afraid of everything. Like, you know, if you touch the wrong door handle, you're going to get COVID. You know, if you don't stay 6 foot from somebody else, or you do this or do that. And in groceries, you know, people were hoarding and doing whatever. So you'd go to the grocery store and they're like, it's all gone. So a lot of us started a pantry, and some of us got to a really big pantry. But a working pantry is what I suggest that you try to build now. So write down the meals that you eat. Not everybody does like what I do and cook something different every day, because, you know, I've got a channel and I can't cook the same 7 things over and over again, or I'd have 1,000 subscribers. But figure out the things that you use. You know, like, do you like spaghetti? How many different things can you make from spaghetti? You know, your different kinds of pastas, do you use them? Or do you not eat pasta at all? You know, what kind of meats do you use? What kind of vegetables do you use? What kind of fruits and dairy and whatever do you use? Now, I do like to keep shelf-stable milk downstairs just in case. Something never to forget to stock up on too is water. Water is more important than the food, actually. 3 days you can be dead. I have gotten a life straw. I do have the river right down here. So if worst came to worst, believe me, I'll scoop water out of there and clean it up. You know, I don't have any heavy duty infiltration systems, and a lot of people have done that, but I just can't afford anything like that. So to get a working pantry, figure out those things that you eat on the regular. Don't worry about the extra rice or the extra beans or this and that. I mean, you should have those too, but get things that you actually are going to eat on a weekly basis, how much you think you might need. Do not go out and spend $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever some of these people do and stock to the ribs, you know, because you don't need to do that. I'm going to show you what I got today for $24. And I very seldom have to do stock ups anymore because I am stocked up. But I have a working pantry up here too. It's in my back room. And it has my veggies and fruits and my dehydrated things and my flours and sugars and whatever. I do have those things downstairs too. So when I run low, then I bring them up. There are a few things like peas and mixed vegetables, things that I have not canned that I need to have, or I want to have. How's that? Yes, Belle, I hear you. And those are the things that you're going to want to stock up on. If you qualify for the food pantry and, you know, you are, you know, having a hard time eating, never ever be ashamed to go to the food pantry. If there's things that you get that you just really truly don't need, you don't know what to do with, or you absolutely won't eat it, whatever, make sure you pass it on to someone else. Don't let it go to waste. Don't let the fresh food that they give to you go to waste. Whether you have to freeze it or can it or dehydrate it, whatever you have to do. Any of your food that you get, don't let it go to waste. It just makes no sense at all. So I'm hoping I'm telling you this stuff not out of fear, but out of love and caring and, you know, concern that so many channels are just like blowing up because they're feeding on your fear. They're feeding on you thinking that you're not going to be able to support your family or feed your family. And, you know, I understand that there's been cuts through, you know, different programs or whatever. But as our families did in the past, we've lived and learned. The problem is we quit learning. And I'm guilty of it too. My grandmother, I was about 18, 19 years old, and she was teaching me how to can pears and peaches and whatever, and I dropped the ball. I just dropped the ball. It was so much easier just to go to the store and buy it, right? I worked 2 jobs. I didn't have time for all that stuff. I remember her pantry downstairs. I remember the big garden. I remember how she would, you know, she had a bucket by the back door, and any leftovers that couldn't be used, scraps, whatever, they would put in that bucket, and it would go out into the garden for fertilizer. You know, I think we've forgotten the old things. Back in the 70s, they say how many, you know, families just went to, you know, eating frozen foods and whatever because the government and the sales companies had convinced us that, you know, this was such an easier way to go and so much better to do. And do I completely cook from scratch? No, I don't. But do I use as much of the, you know, like frozen as far as meals and stuff? No, I don't. So I'm kind of like in between there. But the problem is, it's gotten to be so we can throw in a, you know, a frozen pizza or whatever, and sure, it doesn't take long. Belle, stop. She's climbing up here because I'm talking to my phone. Hold on a second. You need to get down. But we have forgotten to learn how to cook. And I'm not saying that you need to eat rice and beans all the time or anything else. But you can get spaghetti and goulashes and all those fun things and still eat really good. And people that tell you that, you know, oh my gosh, you didn't make your pasta, or you didn't make your own sauce, or you didn't do this, you didn't. Listen, you're doing what you can for your family. Now, do I do stock-ups? Yes, I do. But not like I used to. So when butter goes on sale for $1.99 at Kroger, do I stock up on it? Yes, I do. Because it's normally $6 a pound. You know, $5 to $6. And I did find out too why some of our butter doesn't melt as much. Our butter should only have cream and salt. That should be it. But they added something else for color and whatever, so it makes it so it's not as pure. And some of my favorite brands actually showed up as it's not good. But the Kroger brand didn't have all that extra stuff in it. So, and it's cheaper. Now, when butter was on sale the other day, they also had pasta sauce. If you bought 5, it would be $1.49. Well, if you go to Walmart, I think it's up to $1.92. It might even be more than that. I should have checked that. Here, let me shut this off and check real quick. So they lowered the price a little bit. It did get up to $1.82, I think. Now it's down to $1.68. I did get Prego, which is $2.48 at Kroger, or at Walmart, $2.49 at Meijer. Kroger or Walmart isn't always as cheap anymore. So on the Prego brand, I saved 99 cents, and I still saved 30 cents. But I bought, I think, 10 jars altogether. And so when things are cheap like that, that's when I stock those things up. I try not to pay full price for anything. That's why I go to the discount stores. But anyways, so when you get good deals like that, if you have money to be able to stock up a few things, then do it. If you don't, then don't. Don't let someone sit there and tell you that you're going to die because there wasn't any fertilizer this year. That you're not going to be able to feed your family. Yes, it's going to affect a lot of things. Yeah, it is. But we don't have to live in fear, and we've got a few months before that actually takes effect. So if there's things that you can stock up on now, do it. And I really did mean it when, you know, like that, we used to do that $5 Friday or whatever it was. Even if you're really, really broke, you can buy an extra can of tuna or extra can of peas or extra can of green beans, whatever it happens to be. Now, through Heather over at the Needy Homestead. She has a great video, and it's people making money off of fear. She has some stats. When you have positive, things into your title, your views decrease. When you have negative, it increases. Now, she said something that I completely agree with. You need to have a pantry that puts you at peace. Now, my working pantry, even as small as that is, puts me at peace. Because I know that I can go, if there's not anything in my freezer, I can go to the back room and I can get vegetables and fruits. And I have tuna, I have chicken, whatever. I don't have to go downstairs to get any of that. So, do I feel peaceful when I walk out there? Yes, I do. And that's a really, really good thing. I don't like that people would cause other people to live off of fear. It makes no sense to me. After living that myself in 2020, it's crazy. But what I suggest that we all do, honestly, is if there's things that we don't know, people sometimes are afraid to get into canning. But once they do, like me, then you begin to love it. That way you can take, if you get, like you find a bushel of tomatoes for $10, that makes an awful lot of canned tomatoes. And it would be cheaper than at the store. People are afraid to sometimes, dehydrate. Now, I do not suggest dehydrating meat. People have done their jerky or whatever. I guess that's okay. But I do fruits and vegetables. You can actually dehydrate rice to make it into like a chicken rice or whatever you want to. There's a lot of things that you can dehydrate. There's a lot of things that you can can. I will not have a big garden this year or ever again until I get a different piece of property. But if you have a chance to grow in grow bags, or if you can grow in a box. Remember when I first started my garden? It wasn't all those beautiful raised beds. It was in boxes, and it was in laundry baskets and stuff like that. You can grow in those things. I can't really grow in my backyard because there's everybody else's trees, makes it so it's dark back there. And we have a lot of rodents that when my son tried it back there, it ate everything. Like right now we have something trying to live underneath my front porch. Yeah, I had a raccoon come up my porch the other day. We have skunks that live in the garage next door, and they eat that garden. They do. They didn't seem to bother it when it was over at Jack's as much because I think it was in the open. But, even if you have to just have a little garden in your windowsills, which I don't have windowsills, by the way, but if you do, you can grow them there. Learn things. Look at some of the channels, that teach you things from way back in the day. Because people can say whatever they want about the boomers and before that and whatever. But they did know how to save money, and they did know how to feed their families. And instead of letting fear take you over, watch a few of those things. Learn how to cook. I know people that never cook at home, and, they eat out all the time, and I don't know how they can afford it. I don't. But they do. So I wanted to read a couple things. Do not fear is a command. Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. This direct encouragement to not fear is a breath of fresh air when life's uncertainties start to build up. Prayer replaces anxiety. Philippians 4:6. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your requests to God. When worries creep in, turning them into prayer shifts your focus from your problems to the one who can handle them. And there's so many other ones, like hand over the burden, deliverance of fear, God's presence, peace overcomes the troubled hearts. Different things like that that you can look up. And, you know, if you're a believer, she's back up here again. No. Get down. Thank you. If you're a believer, look those things up. So when you're upset and you're not sure how to handle things, I seen on this one channel the other day that the guy said every answer that you have in this world is in the Bible. And I believe that. I don't know if this video made any sense, but I'm really, I just can't believe that people would make money off of your fear. It just makes no sense to me. Like, why would you do that to your fellow man? I mean, I need to make more money. There's no doubt about it. But I'm not going to do it by trying to hurt other people, if that makes sense. Do what's best for you and your family. If you're a praying family, pray. You know, you can build up a working pantry. Don't worry about building that big old pantry, you know, that lasts for a year, whatever, like that. Build one that will get you through a week, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it happens to be that you're most comfortable with. Learn skills that will help you. That, you know, I mean, that's something I don't do, but, you know, you see all these people that they go out in the woods and they get all these different, I don't know, herbs and different foods that you can eat. I've never done that, foraging. And there are things out there that can help provide too. I know that sounds funny, right? Just don't be guided by fear. Be guided out of the need. Be guided out of, you know, what you feel is necessary for your family. You know, I do encourage canning because I think it's such a great way to open up so many things. And if you find, you know, discount meats or whatever, then you can can them up and they're on your shelves. I know through Superb, they say their lids hold for 3 years. And the other ones are 18 months. I'd rather have 3 years than one that's good on my shelf. Have I had a few things, not through Superb, but other ones that has popped? Yes. And boy, when you go down to the pantry, I mean, Tom goes to the pantry. I don't, but when he brings it up, it stinks. It's gross. So make sure that you're rotating. Make sure that you look for things like that. And it's not just home goods. You know, if you buy canned goods, make sure that they're staying in a cool, dry place. Make sure that they're not getting rusty lids, things like that, that make it unsafe for you to eat them. The best by date is just that. You can get things that are past date. Now, we went to one discount store and I told Tom, let's go. Things were 3 years past date. I'm not going to do that and then maybe possibly have it in my pantry for another couple of years. It's not going to happen. So look at your best by dates and think about, there's so many things, and if you can't figure it out, go on your phone, go on your internet, and find out logically how much time you can go past that best by date and have it still be safe. So I hope I didn't get too confusing and too wordy and whatever, but I'm going to take my phone out to the kitchen now and I'm going to show you what I spent $24 on, and then I'll end the video. All right, so I got all this for $24. I have plenty of spaghetti. I have spaghetti to last until, I don't know, forever. But the two vegetables that I don't can are mixed vegetables and sweet peas. So every once in a while I get 6 of each. I don't use a lot of wide noodles, so I only get those a couple times a year. And that's usually for tuna fish casserole. Anyway, and so I got a couple of those. I got 6 elbow noodles and 4 rotini. Now, what I do with these is I will put them in my air sucker outer, because you want to get them out of the box and out of that bag as quickly as you can, because it will last far longer when you suck the air out. Your noodles will last a long, long time. So I hope I didn't get anybody fearful today. I hope that it encouraged people to do what's best for your family and listen to more positive things. Things that are not going to have you so upset all the time. Because I truly am a believer, if we just think about things that upset us all the time, that's the way our life is going to go. We're all facing a lot of things right now, whether it's income loss, job loss, cost of living, whatever it happens to be. We're all in the same boat right now, unless you're super rich. So let's work together, learn from each other, and not do it in fear. Let's do it out of love. Let's do it out of, peace. Let's try to keep some peace in ourselves. Thanks for coming along. I hope you enjoyed the video.